All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Close. We are live. I am sorry I'm a little late, but we are here. What an ugly day it has been across the global capital equity markets. We have got so much to talk about in terms of what is going down. There's been a few names, and when I mean a few, I really mean a few names that have been able to withstand the wrath of the markets. If you sell high bandwidth memory, you've been able to survive today, or DRAM. But if you sell anything else, especially if you sell software, you're getting hit. Palantir, 119.40. Little ugly. NVIDIA, down 1.3%. The S&P 500, down about 0.5%. SoFi, down 4%. Microsoft loses 370. Was at 367 at one point. Meta, down another 2%. Amazon continues to stay below 240, but I think the most surprising thing of the day, at least in terms of price action, none other than SpaceX. Folks, we are witnessing a collapse of SpaceX. I have been staring at this chart all day. 165, it did not let go basically until 40 minutes ago. 165, it would get to 165.01, 165. It would not go below 165. And when it lost 165, it lost 165. It went to 161, then 158, then 157, and now you're looking at 154. I mean, this is a pretty ugly drawdown that you're seeing right here. The buyers tried to keep it above 165. Obviously, it just did not work out, as there was support until essentially it collapsed and the bottom fell out. 155.20, down 16%. SpaceX has lost today, if we do the math real quick. This is $390 billion in market cap. It added $420 billion in market cap last week in one day. It was the most amount of market cap we've ever seen in a day. And at least for SpaceX, this is the most amount of market cap that it's lost in a day at $390 billion. Pretty ugly stuff. Google, still bad day, down 5%. Did bounce off 341. We'll talk about Google a little bit more throughout the day. That's down about 5%. You had Reddit, that was down 2.8%. Shopify was down. Lennar was down. QXO was down. ASTS was down. Rocket Lab tried to make a comeback, but is below $100. It got all the way back up to 107, right back down to 99.61. Really, in the last 30 minutes, everything collapsed again. Even Robinhood tried to make a little bit of a comeback, but as you can see right here, 105.80 after it was at 112.50 in the morning. Yeah, everything came down. Hollis did make Steve's nephew $1 because he recommended a double short SpaceX ETF, which, yeah, that worked out today. The other SpaceX short that worked today is Matt from the draft. Talk about timing, huh? Talk about timing. Matt has the largest position along with SMCI in terms of gains, SMCI and Tanner's portfolio, with the SpaceX short. He's up 16.5% in a day. The rankings right now are Tanner, Matt, Jason, Amit, Chris, and Steve. So this is what we got right now. As you can see, Tanner, Matt, and Jason, very close to all going for the same spot right there. But it has been a crazy day from a lot of different levels, and the SpaceX shorts have won today. If you took a short position, if you bought those short ETFs, SLNK, I think was under $11. SNK last week. SNK is now, I think, over $20 right here. Yeah, this was another double short ETF. There's so many of them. SNK, yeah, $21 is up 32% on the day. So this is what I think people were scared of. This is the thing that we're seeing right now with SpaceX is what people were very scared of happening into the IPO, and it didn't happen. In fact, you got the exact opposite. You got a massive pump up to 230. But for whatever reason, which I don't even know if there's that many shares being unlocked on the markets right now through the VC lockups or through the employee lockups. I don't think they are, because there's a certain tier that the shares have to get to in order for those shares to be unlocked. So it feels like this is more momentum unwinding, and just a lot of people obviously are unfortunately bag holding the stock right now. And obviously this could reverse tomorrow. This could be general market momentum, but 16% down is pretty aggressive. And it's taken a big beating today. 155.44, Palantir 119.86, Google 349. Again, Microsoft, very ugly day. Micron and SanDisk survived. Bloom survived, right? You have some names that actually held up throughout the day. Even Intel was pushing 145, now at 141 as we get into the close. That's not too bad either. It's just a lot of the other high beta stuff in software, fintech, and some parts of semis ended up taking the brunt of the pain today. I did go shopping. I bought 4 things today. I have not done a lot of shopping, to be honest, throughout the past 3 weeks. And so today was one of those days where I actually did go shopping. Put in the chat if you bought anything. Fear and Greed's at 36. It definitely felt like a little bit of fear on a few of these names. 4 names that I bought today. Palantir, one of them. Amazon, the second one. Broadcom, the third one. Shopify, the fourth one. Palantir, Amazon, Shopify. Already had these names in the portfolio. Shopify bought at 102 initially. Bought more at 114. This was on Memorial Day or the day after Memorial Day. Amazon has been in the portfolio for a while. Palantir obviously been in the portfolio for a while. Broadcom was the new one. And, we'll talk more about it, but I think this buy kind of speaks for itself. Is it the best price? I don't know, because this thing was at 370 the other day, so I would not doubt it going back down to the 370s. I really would be excited if it goes down to the 330s. That's where I think you would have a chance to establish a full position. It was kind of basing around the 330s for the majority of this year before it finally got the breakout. But it's down a lot on earnings. They're going to 4x AI revenue next year. The only reason it tanked is because guidance wasn't good enough. Stock probably got a bit ahead of itself. Large cap semiconductor name. I think kind of moving with TSMC right here, probably a bit more movement than NVIDIA, given it is smaller from NVIDIA in the tune of $2 trillion. And so finally added it to the portfolio right here. So we're in Broadcom. We got some Shop. We got some Palantir. We got some Amazon. Obviously, Palantir today is the most surprising from the software perspective. Microsoft below 370 is ugly, but Palantir also feels like a momentum unwind. And I mean, what do you say? Down 7%, $287 billion market cap. It has taken a pretty nasty hit. It was at 130 in the morning or 128. And so this is one of the worst days Palantir has had in a while. It has completely broken through every level of support that it had. It was at 127, then 125, losing 120 today. Not a good sign. Hopefully we get a close above 120, but I'm buying Palantir with the expectation that it's probably going lower from here just because I don't know if we easily get a rebound. I mean, the last time we got a rebound at 123, you had a Trump tweet, which helped out Palantir. You also had the broader software sector kind of pivot. And right now, software is not showing you any bit of a pivot. If you look at the heat map right here, and again, I know a lot of people are asking, why are we so red today? And I've got a few theories on it. I don't have the perfect answer, but the point is we are in a lot of different areas. Now, there's other areas where we're not. Energy was okay today. Financials were okay today. Healthcare was okay today. Semiconductors, again, you have to be a little specific, but Dell, HP, SMCI, fantastic day with that new NVIDIA partnership. That was great. But then you had your Broadcoms that were down, your Oracles that were down, CrowdStrike's relatively flat, and Microsoft got hit, Google got hit. I don't understand the disdain for software outside of the market just saying we're going to buy more semis, which is fine. But it's like that narrative is so old and tired. Like it feels like there's something deeper and structural going on right now that is a bit confusing, a bit confusing. And as a result of that, I don't know if we're going to get an easy understanding of why everything is down so much versus just the market being sassy when it comes to SaaS. And it feels like that's what's happening. Oil was down today, so you can't really blame Iran. Oil at 74. The 10-year's up, but it's not up dramatically. 10-year at 4, it was at 4.49 in the morning. It's at 4.51 right now. So I guess you could blame a little bit of it on the 10-year. The other big reason we talked about it in the morning is there's going to be a lot of selling due to quarterly rebalancing. JP Morgan is estimating about 165 billion of downside pressure of equity rotations into bonds. So maybe that's part of the reason. But realistically, there is not some massive aggressive headline to look at that easily explains why we are red today. If anything, you got actually decent updates around Iran, given that the U.S. officially is allowing them to sell oil in the country and in U.S. denominated dollars. So, I mean, you had good updates all day. It's just the market doesn't really care. Robinhood down about 2.3%. Microsoft down 3% as well. Micron has been your safety, 1,200. SanDisk has been the safety, 2,270. Your memory names continue to get a bid from those headlines last week about Apple increasing their prices on consumer electronics because of memory, but also SK Hynix becoming the largest company in the world, or our largest company in South Korea, overtaking Samsung. And a bunch of sell-side analysts saying, hey, memory prices are going up when it comes to HBM, DRAM, and NAND. On top of that, you got Micron earnings in a couple days, and I don't know, the option flow on Micron has been absolutely crazy. So there's, someone bought $88 million of calls a year out for 1,500 on Micron. And you just got a lot of flow coming in of people that are excited for the street to re-rate the memory names. NVIDIA, that's down 1%. S&P 500 down about 0.3. Again, the index only down 0.3. It's not that bad on the indices. Even the Q's not down that badly. but these individual names just got hit pretty hard. AMD with a little bit of a rebound into the close, got to 562, fell all the way down to 535, now at 550. This one's starting to really normalize that $500 level. But this one also took a bit of a beating from the high today. Looks like it's going to end up closing green. Intel closing green, TSM closing green, the CapEx trade. Once again, this is where the money is going. Lumentum, that's up 5%. Again, SMCI, great day. Just a lot of these names in the CapEx trade that are holding on to their strength as the software, fintech, and space trade kind of starts to collapse in a pretty epic fashion. ASTS down 9% on the day. Your Rocket Labs of the world, 100.33. If we get that $100 close, that would be nice, but that was still down 7% as well. And then SpaceX, we had a lot to talk about on that one, but this was just nasty. This was just nasty. Put in the chat if you bought SpaceX today, if you bought the dip. You had one of the CNBC contributors, Stephanie Link, saying she thinks there's a screaming buy at these levels. And the rest of the panel was just like, what are you talking about? But she was like, no, this is the time you buy. And maybe she will be right. But from a valuation perspective, her argument was like, well, look at how Tesla's done over 10 years. I'm like, I don't know if that's the best argument to be able to say that, you know, SpaceX will do well. But then again, you bet on Elon, and sometimes betting on Elon ends up working. SpaceX 150.46. Well, now she's definitely screaming. Yeah, now she might be definitely screaming. Trump is live, apparently. He's talking. We're about to close the market. Let's close this market in about 40 seconds. Then we'll go to Trump. I had no idea he's live. He's talking about a bunch of stuff. I think he's also talking about quantum computing. And so we'll get to him in a second right here as we end up the day. Again, put in the chat what you bought. If you did buy anything or sell anything. I bought 4 names: Palantir, Amazon, Broadcom, new position portfolio, and Shopify. So those were the 4 dip buys for today. I have not really bought the dip over the past couple of weeks. Today was the day we went shopping, and we'll see if we get another opportunity to continue going shopping. Here we go. Monday, June 22nd. Starting off the week with a little bit of red in some spots of the market. The stock market is now closed. All right, we are done for the day. In the chat, I see a bunch of Palantirs, I see a bunch of Broadcoms, I see a bunch of AMDs, I see some Amazons, see a couple Navitoses, see some Irens, I see a few Netflixes. Netflix also got destroyed today. This one took a nasty beating. It looks like it wanted to go below 70 at one point, got a little bit of rebound to 72.88. Let's go to Trump real quick, see what he's saying, and then we will keep going from there.
Behavior. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics just last year. This is a relevant meeting. Pete Hegseth down the line here.
And 2 days ago, we set a record, most ever taken out of the Straits. Pent up, but it's a record. Did you know of my uncle at all?
No.
You didn't?
No.
I don't. You missed a good bit.
I
Would you like to?
Berkeley and MIT.
Well, but MIT's
department and NIST, and he's a Nobel Prize winning alum, which is, if you don't think the people in the Commerce Department and in NIST are the best, I mean, here's an example. Nobel Prize winner who was part of our team. You all know that the government invested $2 billion just a couple of weeks ago in quantum to drive it forward. And besides investing in the companies, we've also invested in fabs to build quantum for others so we can manufacture these quantum in America. Now you have Ruth Porat from Alphabet. They are doing amazing investing in building quantum. And you have Arvind right next from IBM. We invested in his fab. He's got a leading fab, so he's going to be building those chips, right? So that's that idea. And then lastly, post-quantum cryptography, right? Once you have quantum chips, we've got to protect everyone in this government, post-quantum cryptography. So NIST and the Department of Commerce is going to lead the charge to make sure all of us are protected and defended so we know how to deal with quantum when it comes. We're going to lead in quantum.
Okay, so it's a quantum executive order, IBM getting a little bit of a bid right here. The other quantum names, Not really moving on this at all. D-Wave, Rigetti, IONQ. But it looks like that was the point of today's meeting on this executive order.
And we're going to make sure we stay safe. And these are both the things you're signing today. And that's why you have such an amazing team behind you, because you are leading the charge in quantum for America.
And Ruth, would you like to say something?
Well, thank
Google?
you. First, thank you so much for convening us for this important meeting and these two executive orders. We completely agree. Quantum is a breakthrough critical technology. The U.S. is in the lead. We will stay in the lead. At Google, we're really proud of our innovations.
Wow, they got the Google CFO there. They got the Google CFO, Ruth, talking about quantum. So I'm not sure the details of the executive order. I'll try to find out, but it looks like there's some funding coming into the quantum industry from the government.
Thank you, Secretary Letnick. We've been investing for more than a decade in quantum. And back in 2019, we were the first company actually to achieve quantum supremacy. Didn't stop there. About a year and a half ago, we unveiled a new chip, the Willow chip, which is a great example of American innovation manufactured here in the United States. And what the Willow chip does, it enabled us to do a computation in less than 5 minutes that previously on the best supercomputer would have taken 10 septillion years, which is 1 with 25 zeros. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And what's exciting about this is what it means for our children and grandchildren. It's about medical breakthroughs, nuclear fusion, material science. So we're really excited about the opportunity. And then also around post-quantum cryptography and the work that we're doing there. Absolutely critical that we also keep America safe, everyone safe. So we have been deploying that across our products and services. And it's a critical opportunity. I think with these two EOs, it lays the foundation for one, protecting America, as well as continuing to benefit on the upside. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Tremendous. Say hello to everybody.
I absolutely will.
Arvin, please, IBM.
Okay, so you got the quantum momentum here after hours. I did not know they were going to do an executive order on quantum. Micron continuing to rip 12.15 as it looks like people are buying it up going into earnings. SanDisk actually a bit red after hours. SpaceX getting a little bit of a pop, but that ended down about 16% on the day. None of the quantum names are really getting that big of a move. IBM's up 1%. That's fine. Google, again, nothing too crazy. Still down 5% of the day. Rigetti is up 1%. IONQ, again, a lot of these names already made their move back when Trump announced the quantum funding a month ago. So you could argue it's priced in, but nonetheless, you're not seeing massive moves on some of the quantum names post this announcement. I also have no idea what this executive order is going to do. We'll try to get some more details on it, but they do have the IBM and Google people there. Here's a couple clips earlier from this press conference with Trump talking about some of this stuff.
So we're going to be investing in American quantum leadership like never before to stay ahead of the pack. We're way ahead right now. We'll keep it that way. The second order I'm signing directs federal agency to transition to what is called quantum cryptography. Do anybody know what that is? You're going to hear very soon, so you're going to find it interesting. Cryptography for their computer.
It's cryptography. Not sure if Trump fully knows what it is. I definitely don't know what it is, but that is the executive order they signed today. Here's a couple things he said about Iran earlier as well.
I just want to say before we introduce a couple of the people, we're doing very well with respect to the Hormuz Strait. We took in more oil yesterday than has ever gone through the strait. You probably see that we have an oil gusher. Just want to say scientific and technological progress, like progress agency to transition to what is called quantum cryptography. Gusher, the strait is totally open, you know that, and we're negotiating. We'll see how that all goes, but we have two things. We have an open strait, and we have a country that will never have a nuclear weapon. Will never, ever have a nuclear weapon. So now I'd like to invite Michael Kratsios, Director of the Office of Science and Technology.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, the fact that I have to pronounce someone's pronunciation is kind of crazy. That's like entering the fourth dimension. That's what that is. But there you go. Quantum executive order after hours. All right, so let's talk about what happened today and try to dive a little bit deeper in terms of the downside momentum that we kind of all experience. First of all, I'll put it to the chat. What is your thesis, if you do have a thesis, on why we ended up having some of the red that we had today? I think there's a couple of different layers of explaining what's happening, and we can go through a few of them. But at its core, it does feel today like the market got exhausted of momentum, particularly in SpaceX, which ended up being a catalyst for a variety of different names going down. But then again, I say that, and then Micron ends up the day up 5%. So, if we're talking about a momentum trade, if Micron's not momentum, I don't know what it is. So it's almost like the momentum trade is being selective in terms of where it's going down. Wow, SpaceX losing 154 after hours. Another couple bucks. This is below 150. And if this is below 150, it is officially below the IPO price. It did not touch. I mean, it literally opened at 150, even though the IPO price was obviously 135. And this one could be getting hit. On top of that, you have the NASDAQ inclusion today with a bunch of different stocks. CoreWeave, Teradyne, Nebius were all part of that. Rocket Lab, A-Lab, et cetera. CoreWeave right there down about 5% of the day. CoreWeave was a lot worse. It was at 106. So you got a nice little bounce from 106 up to 111. You have the Russell rebalance happening as well. And then you have the $165 billion of equities that JP Morgan estimates are going to be sold off and transitioned into bonds over the course of the next 7 days. So I think when you put all that together, there are kind of technical reasons for why we saw some ups and downs, but it's only because there's not a legit, realistic explanation that you could point to that's as easy as a Trump-Iran tweet or something for why we ended up going red. And so I think that would be kind of the way to sum it up, at least to some extent. But outside of that, honestly, I'm just not sure. Today was a weird day with the market opening as green as it was. And then, not everything was green, but as soon as everything started going red, everything really started going red. Then you got the rebound, but the names that fell, they couldn't recover, like a Palantir, which, really did not have any momentum once it lost the 122 range. The US dollar is up a lot on the day. Yeah, that started happening last week. We're at 101 on the Dixie. We were at 100 on Thursday. That could definitely be playing a role right here as the 10-year continues to go higher. So definitely that could be part of the reason. So you have the dollar going up, the 10-year going up, equities being rebalanced, and then you have momentum drawdowns on, names that still control a lot of money in the market with SpaceX. I mean, you still had hundreds of billions of dollars being traded there, even if the float is relatively simple. Gold and silver were okay today. Silver was up about 2%. Gold was up 1.15. We saw some interesting stats on gold last week. Bank of America basically came out and said gold is in a pseudo bear market. And they said this is the least overvalued gold has been in the history of gold trading, which means, it's really just not participating in the high beta rally. And obviously it's been left for dead. Or sorry, it's the lowest overvalued it's been since February 24, I should say. So in the past 2.5 years in this Bank of America fund survey, in the context of what you have for gold. Do we have a Palantir headline after hours? I think we do. Do we? Yeah, Palantir selected as the cloud data layer for the U.S. Army NGC2, the Army's highest priority command and control modernization program. Wow, Palantir founders the cloud data layer. Anduril's Lattice will be the tactical data layer working in conjunction with Palantir that just came out, designed for rapid scaling and interoperability across Army formations, built to support future AI-enabled mission capabilities. I'll try to get the press release in a second, but that just came out. Palantir getting a very small bounce after hours on that news, but you do have that news right there. Trump says, if Iran doesn't stick to the agreement, I will do what I have to do. If Iran doesn't behave, I will do what I need to do. Let's go back to Trump real quick. I believe he's taking Q&A. Then we'll get back into some of the other reasons.
We have the North Sea oil, and they won't let anybody drill. It's one of the great fields in the world, and they haven't even found most. You know that the UK buys much of its energy. You know where? Norway. You know where they get their oil? The North Sea. The UK has a much better portion of the North Sea. They don't want to do it for environmental purposes, okay? And I told him he's a very nice man. I mean, sort of a friend of mine. I mean, he was not good to us with NATO, Pete, right? He said, we can't use the island to land. That was the first. For a couple of weeks, he said, well, but ultimately I gave it, that was a bad move. That hurt him badly. But But, I mean, I wish him well, but he's got two problems, energy and immigration and crime. But energy and immigration.
Do you have a preference on the next one, sir?
And he's really hurt himself very, very badly. Please go.
President, can you tell us about your meeting with the defense contractors on Wednesday and what you plan to tell them?
The meeting coming up, because I've met with them before. We're building plants all over the country. They are not allowed to take any more stock buybacks. Do you do stock buybacks by any chance? Not too much, right? Because you want to invest in product. It's just an artificial way of raising a price if you're running a bad company. So they spent $51 billion on stock buybacks instead of spending them on plants. Now they're spending, they can't do that anymore. Now they are spending a lot of money. We're building many plants throughout the country. They're dealing with General Motors, they're dealing with Ford. But I know General Motors is all excited about building weapons now. They have some plants which are going to switch over. We're going to build weapons, including the Patriot, including the Tomahawk, and lots of other things. And we're really in a big, strong economic push to do the weapons. And some of the car companies, if they have any excess capacity, they're making a deal to build missiles and the Patriot in particular. We have quite a few of them, but we want to make sure we have always a lot of them.
Mr. President of Colombia, the candidate that you endorse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations on the quantum physics EO to all of you. Vice President Vance said that there were mechanisms in place to make sure that there's not escalations with the Strait of Hormuz and with Israel and Lebanon. Can you talk about what those mechanisms are, and are you in direct talks with the Supreme Leader?
Yeah, look, here's the thing. As long as they respect us, I don't want to use the word fear because that's an inappropriate word, but as long as they respect us, we're not going to have any trouble. We have total control of the strait.
So the mechanism is
we have a Navy that had a blockade. I think the blockade was more impactful than dropping bombs, if you want to know the truth. It was like they call it the steel wall. Nobody got through. Not one ship got through, able to go to Iran. They got through if we wanted them to go through. And we could set that up again in about 15 minutes. I would say, Pete, one phone call. How long would it take? Maybe half hour?
They're ready to go right now if you need to.
It'll be before we finish the meeting. No, we have, as long as they respect us, we're going to be fine. If they don't respect us, things wouldn't be good, but they have a lot of respect. Don't forget, we had presidents that should have done this for 47 years. Nobody did it. Obama gave them a road to a nuclear weapon. I gave them a wall against a nuclear. They can never, under this agreement, they'll never even think about building a nuclear weapon.
Mr. President, on Colombia, the candidate.
El Tigre.
Belardo de la Espriella. We know that you had a phone.
I endorsed him. He was in 10th place. I endorsed him, and he won the election.
Yeah, we know that you had a
no different than this country.
You had a phone conversation with Belardo de la Espriella in the last hours. What can you tell us about that phone conversation, and what do you see? What do you anticipate?
You're from Colombia?
Yes, sir. I'm from Colombia.
So he called.
A great city.
He called me last night, and he thanked me for the endorsement. He won. He won the election. He wasn't anticipated to win, but he won, and he won handily. It's just an honor. He was just a good man. I'd watch him a little bit speak, and he always speak. When people like me, I like them. It's very simple. It's a very simple formula, and I like him. He said really nice things about me and the job we've done in the United States, and very, very powerful. And he won an election in Colombia that, I don't know, some people were surprised because he was a little bit further down the pack, but he won easily last night. He won by, called me at 8:30 in the evening just to thank me very much. And I said, you ran a great campaign. He said, El Tigre, right?
Yeah. And what do you anticipate for the relation with Colombia? Colombia is such an
much
important.
better. It'll be better. He's going to be a great president.
Are the contractors who did the initial work with the reflecting pool, are they to blame for the current condition, or is it the vandals that you mentioned?
Vandals. We have I think 290, 300 foot slit right through it, probably a box cutter or a knife of some kind. We had people lifting up the basic, it's not a lot of damage, but we'll probably have to let the water out and refix it. They went in there with a knife. I was just told by the people over at Parks, they have 5 people are arrested, and 5 people are under investigation right now. And it's a sad thing. In addition to that, we put brand new, beautiful grass all around. They put these massive letters on the grass. You probably know about that, right? And they said 8647. They probably got that from the dirty cop, told me. You know he's a dirty cop, don't you? Dirty cop, he's a crooked guy. They destroyed the grass. So that's a big thing. But we're going to get it back very soon.
National Guard and police have been all over the mall. How would these vandals have gotten so close to do something like that?
You have any proof of
I mean, we didn't have a lot of them then. Who would think that somebody would go into a pool and take a knife and start cutting it?
If you have proof of that they
Yeah,
used the
yeah,
knife?
yeah.
You have photos or video?
Well, let's put it this way. When you have a 350, I think it's 350, not 250, a 350-foot slit from one end to the other, you think that's proof? You think that's
The
proof?
reporters have been down there today looking for that slit that you mentioned, and
Well,
there's no
just-
evidence of
All
it.
you'd have to do is see the Parks Department. They'll show it to you. See the secretary. But I saw it. They cut it very violently. The same thing with the floor. They cut it. And then they lifted it, they pulled it, and that's what it is. And, we've done over 50 monuments. Number one, we start with, this is now a safe city. It's as safe a city as you're going to get in the country. And when I came here, it was a very dangerous city. And number two, what we did is the beautification with the park.
Okay. That's what we got from Trump. Yeah, that is. We'll get back to that if we get some more details on Iran. But in terms of the main stuff he's saying is Micron, wow, 12:30 after hours. The main stuff he's been making the argument on is that if the agreement is going to be respected, then both sides will be able to come to a meaningful conclusion on how to actually get a deal. Because again, they have a 60-day ceasefire in place, 60-day extension of the ceasefire. They don't have a deal yet, but the strait is open. So that is a good thing. The naval blockade is gone. I didn't know he was meeting with the defense contractors, but he will be meeting with them soon, or in another couple of days on Wednesday. And we'll probably get more updates on some of the new plants. Potentially Trump wants them to continue building. Google right there, 349 after hours. I think Micron's getting the pump off of earnings, or the expectation going into earnings, which means earnings either going to be a buy the news or a sell the rip. And we're going to have to see after hours what that ends up putting up results like. SpaceX continuing to fall after hours, 153.90 right here. And the quantum names, just not making that crazy of a move. All right, what do people think? Today was a good dip buy day, or is today the start of a little bit more red? What do people think? The Anthropic announcement with Micron today was in the morning. I don't think it was that important of an announcement outside of Anthropic basically saying they want to, get more memory, which they've already been doing from Micron. So they kind of just made it more official today, but nonetheless, a headline with Anthropic obviously is very good for any company except the software companies. I mean, the software companies could partner with Anthropic tomorrow and they'd still fall 10%, but it was bullish for Micron, 1228 right there. I also think that's part of the reason Google could have fallen today. If the market thinks that Anthropic wants to build their own custom chips, they might not be relying as much on TPUs, which is a bit worse for Google than it is for NVIDIA. Again, maybe that's a stretch of an argument, but that could be part of the reason why Google took a hit. 349 right there as that continues to go red. Credo, this one had a good day. That was up 11%. ALab was this up. ALab was up 5.42%. This was one of the only NASDAQ names that actually had a little bit more green. Nebius, this was flat. They got up to 299.86. They did not let us see 300. And then they took it right back down. Why did Broadcom drop? Well, Broadcom's been oscillating back and forth. I think Broadcom's going to be stuck for a while in this range. Let's call it 380 to 410. Just because it took about 7 months before it broke out from that 330 range, and it was basically stuck between 300 and 330. So it goes through these periods. Obviously, if you bought early in the year, you're up. It was at 414 pre-market, and then it came down. Broadcom also builds the TPUs for Google, so maybe part of the reason if Google is down, Broadcom's falling with it. Marvell didn't have the worst day. It didn't get back up to the 330s, but it was down 1%, which is relatively inconsequential. but I think the Google news might have been a little bit worse for Broadcom. The other thing on Google, as people are mentioning, is the talent that they had. Noam Shazir, who was one of the biggest contributors to Gemini over the past couple of years, went to OpenAI. That news kind of happened on Wednesday night. Market didn't care about it too much. I think today the market started taking that a bit more seriously.
Tech names today, the mega cap ones, Heidi.
Hey, yeah, right. That's not just SpaceX, but Google, Amazon, Meta, feeling a lot of the pressure. And this is really bigger than just one bad headline or even just a few. So yes, Google is getting hit by AI talent departures, but look at the bigger split here. Chinese AI labs, they're rallying in Hong Kong. Jipu and Minimax sharply higher overnight, while US AI names, like the ones I just mentioned, they are selling off today. What investors are really wrestling with here is whether the model layer is losing pricing power. If customers, if they're getting better at token minimizing now, if they're getting better at routing tasks to cheaper models and using open source alternatives, then the closed model players, they have a problem. Can they keep charging premium prices? Can they keep their market position? That is why this China move matters increasingly more to investors here. Jipu is testing the same assumption that DeepSeek tested a year and a half ago, that American frontier labs have an untouchable lead. So the chip and the infrastructure names, though, I will note they have not sold off in the same way because they win in more of these scenarios, whether the winner is OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Jipu, or an open source startup. Somebody still needs those chips, data centers, networking, and power. So the market, Scott, may still believe in AI demand, but it may just be getting more selective about where the profits are going to land. And right now, the infrastructure trade looks more durable, while the closed model trade and the status quo, the Mag 7, now 8, have to prove that pricing power and their market share can hold.
All right, Dee, thank you. That's Georgia Bosa. Now to our panel.
So I think from that perspective, it's a interesting thing. The Chinese model stuff. The other big news today was the open source compute deal that Elon and SpaceX got, $6.3 billion with Reflection. Again, this is not bearish Google. Even what she said about open source Chinese models, I don't think that's actually bearish Google. None of those companies have business models that are meaningfully re-architecting how the go-to-market in the enterprise is being deployed. Although the Microsoft comments from last week of Satya getting ready to host DeepSeek models instead of using Claude Code or OpenAI, I mean, that was a bit troubling. From Wall Street Journal yesterday, Microsoft is weighing whether to host a version of DeepSeek, an ultra-low-cost AI provider based in China that OpenAI and Anthropic have called out for distilling or copying their top models. Such a step would likely lead to a dramatic rise in use for the Chinese model maker, one that could come at the expense of OpenAI and Anthropic, which is confusing because Microsoft obviously has a very large stake in OpenAI. So I once again, the perception on token minimization in terms of the cost of these tokens to and what it takes to generate them, as it relates to the foundation models, it's not really bearish on the CapEx trade, but it could be bearish on the cloud providers that end up enabling the compute. The problem is, I feel like the cloud providers, I guess maybe Google's in a different situation because of Gemini and they're spending a lot of money on being able to generate tokens for Gemini. But the other ones like Amazon and Microsoft can just use different models and help their customers save more costs, which should drive more workloads on Azure, GCP eventually, and AWS. On top of that, the software names like a Salesforce, which is now trading at January 2023 lows at 150, benefit from this. ServiceNow benefits from this. Palantir benefits from this. The cost of tokens going down are a good thing for the software companies because the orchestration, the governance, the processing of the tokens also goes down, which means they can focus on delivering more value for their customers. So to send the software names down on this news, or the Mac 7 names down, again, just feels like a perception issue. I don't know if that's like an actual legitimate reason, which is partly why I bought the dip on some of these software names today. Oracle took a nasty hit, 175. Software took a hit, so Oracle took a hit. I don't think the data center trade is what affected Oracle today, especially because most data center stocks were relatively okay outside of some of the neoclouds. Keel ended up going below 7, but it tried to break a break at 737. Now it's 674. But Oracle does sell software. And, honestly, their software business had the worst growth that it's had in the past 6 years, last quarter. So if there is a, drawdown on software, I think a lot of the software skeptics will point to this being the issue. IBM took a bit of a beating today. Then it came back. This is what the IBM CEO had to say about 20 minutes ago.
Critical that we're being.
Investment in quantum computing, asking that the departments all work together will actually accelerate what industry does, because that gives us the confidence to invest even more. And that is what we commit to do, to get these systems out and to get what both the secretaries asked for, to get the systems out during your current term. So we will go and invest in doing that. And I'd also like to thank Commerce for the investment they made in accelerating the ability to build fabs so that we can actually make these in America.
Good, thank you very much. Would you like to say something, Russell, about how well we're doing on the budget and things?
Well, we're making tons of progress. I think last year you had the most.
Same thing with the floor, they cut it. And then they lifted it, they pulled it. Workers that work for the same thing. Call me, Governor Pritzker would call me. I would solve the Chicago problem in 3-4 months. I think we spend $600 million a year, right? I would say that. I think the real number, think of that. The numbers that we spend are so crazy, or NATO, and they weren't there for us. So I say to Pete and I say to everybody else, if we're spending all of this money, hundreds of millions of dollars to protect them from Russia, mostly. Okay, so we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year. You know, the case could be made that we spent all of the money over the years before me. I cut it back. But listen, we spend all of this money, and then when we want to maybe have help on small stuff, this is small time. This is not the big one. This is small potatoes. They say no, would rather not help. Stupid thing to say, because we can say that to them if we want, and we might.
Mr. President, it's 1 year anniversary of Operation Midnight Hammer. If you could go back in time, is there anything you would do differently?
No.
Nothing at
It was
all?
the most successful attack that anyone's ever seen with a bomber that totally wiped out their nuclear potential. If we didn't do that, you'd have no Israel right now. Israel would not exist, and most of the Middle East would not exist. They were 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. If we wouldn't have done that, Pete, they would have had a nuclear weapon. You want to say something about that?
Yes, sir. I wasn't aware it was 1 year, but you don't have the situation we have now, a position of strength where Iran's going to give up their nuclear program without Midnight Hammer, which no other country on planet Earth could remotely conceivably pull off that from start to finish, 37 hours back and forth. Iran never saw it, and every munition, precision munition that only we make, hit exactly where we wanted it to, because
they knew we were coming, and they could do nothing.
And they could do nothing about it with their air defenses, which are even further now degraded. And that's what everyone misses in the press, and the president's right to call it fake news, because the overwhelming military victory that has been had over Iran is what has set the conditions for them to be at the table with our negotiators. And we will ensure, whether it's through a deal or through the War Department, that they never get a nuclear weapon because of this president right here.
Okay.
All right. That was the end of the press conference. That's pretty much what you got. Nothing too crazy that we learned from what he said before, outside of, if Iran doesn't stick to the agreement, I will do what I have to do. Markets obviously didn't love the Iran updates today, even though they weren't horrible, but it feels like there were some more technical reasons for why we ended up seeing a sell-off across a variety of different names. Got a headline from Meta. Meta is pausing an internal AI training program after sensitive data was accessible across the entire company. A screenshot showed that the leak exposed employees' private conversations, performance data, and transcriptions. The incident was classified as an SVV2 on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the most severe. A Meta spokesperson confirmed the incident. Quote, "We have carefully designed this program with privacy safeguards, and while we have no indication at this time that any data was improperly accessed by Meta employees, we're pausing it while we investigate." Yeah, I agree. Zucks needs to get it together. It is just bad headline after bad headline every single day for Meta. This was the tool that they're using to basically track employees to make sure they're being more productive. So like every keystroke that you use on a Meta laptop is going to be tracked. Some of the employees filled out surveys against it, all that stuff, right? It looks like it's not working as effectively as they thought it was going to work. By the way, take a look at this. Meta is very close to losing its 12th position as the world's largest company, as Micron is less than a few percent away from officially taking it over. And if it does, Micron, which is now 1.36 trillion, will become a $1.4 trillion company if Meta gets a 2% drawdown. Meta's going down. Meta will be going down. This is kind of crazy, bro. This is like absolutely crazy. I mean, 2026 has been the year of the hyperscalers that are spending their CapEx, essentially eroding away their free cash flow in hopes of eventually creating some level of momentum in the data center space or in the broader AGI, ASI race. And all of that money going into the smaller companies are the ones that are now overtaking them in a pretty sophisticated way, that are showing a lot better earnings growth. Now, obviously, I think Meta's earnings growth is way more reliable than Micron's earnings growth. I don't think they're going to be growing earnings at the level they're growing it at for the next decade, whereas I think Meta theoretically could. Just the business model is a bit more sustainable. In the short term, though, that doesn't matter. What matters is what's the better buy and what's giving you the better growth in the short term. And obviously, Micron, SanDisk, Western Digital, those have executed on that. Yes, Meta needs a task force. That would maybe help. What are the options today? I'll take a look. I haven't checked this yet. That were the most traded today. I imagine SpaceX is in the top 3. SpaceX once again is in the top 3. Today, a lot of put action more than call action. 538,000 puts. Tesla, Nvidia 1 and 2. Then you had Apple and Amazon at 4 and 5. Google, Microsoft, Netflix. Netflix up there in the top 10. A lot of calls on Netflix. 492,000. Intel, Palantir's up there. SMCI, which had a great day. Absolutely incredible day with the new NVIDIA partnership. And so that one was up 15%. Meta, Nokia, once again, hundreds of thousands of calls versus a lot less puts. SoFi was up there. DRAM, Google, Broadcom, AMD, and MicroStrategy. Yeah, the Meta CTO also did say employees' morale was at a low and that they were going to bring snacks to cheer them up, which wasn't the exact quote, but that was basically what they were saying. Look, I think Meta's cheap, but man, this thing is having a lot of different issues. On top of that, I was reading a couple of different articles last night about CapEx and free cash flow. And if you look at some of the analyst sell-side reports, they are factoring in CapEx to not go away in the next couple of years, but for it to start coming down by 2029 and for free cash flow to start coming back more aggressively in 2029. They're estimating no free cash flow for the next couple of years, basically, as these companies are spending rapidly on data center buildouts. But they do think CapEx will, or the free cash flow is going to eventually come back. And when it does come back, that's when some of the re-rating of these companies into more appropriate multiples instead of 15 times forward earnings is going to happen. But once again, who has the patience to wait for that? And who even knows exactly if that's going to happen? Amazon's not expected to make a ton of free cash flow this year because they're spending on CapEx. If the next 2 years, they once again are going to tell the street, we do not need to be free cash flow positive because we need to focus on building out data centers because this is the opportunity of a lifetime, then I would imagine all those companies in that space obviously are going to get a lot more excitement versus, the ones that are spending all that money on data centers. But we are going to have to see. Why Meta other than it's cheap? Well, I mean, it's cheap and it's growing 33%, right? It's not just that it's cheap. I mean, a lot of companies are cheap, but, Netflix is cheap, but Meta's growing. And they're growing substantially. And, half the world uses them. Now, granted, not the most fun explanation given advertising is the only business model. And you would think with all their spending, they have more elements to their growth outside of advertising. But as of now, it has been advertising. This chart right here, once again, proves why the semis have been running the way that they've been running. So these are margins and valuation levels. This is the semis price to sale that you can see right there in purple. It's gone up a lot. Latest price to sales ratio is 16. These are semiconductor margins, which are historically on a TTM basis, 20%. They are now at over 35%. So you've got the price of sales on semis surging as you've got the margins surging, and the valuation is double what it was in the dot-com bubble as a percentage of the S&P. So you put all that together, I think this chart right here gives you the reason for why Meta is not the buy, or is not being seen as the buy, even if their advertising business is growing, substantially and their margins are really good. It goes back to who's actually inflecting, and the semiconductor names, are inflecting that at just a crazy level, which is why we're seeing green. Zeta did have a partnership with Gap today. Street didn't care. Reddit, Shopify, they had some update. Like, the Street does not care unless you are not providing some type of picks and shovels to this CapEx revolution. 1847 right there. Zeta was down about 2.28%. Why are we not seeing a move on Palantir? Once again, I think it's not a Palantir thing. I think it's an entire software industrial complex thing. At this point, I am convinced the algos are just treating Palantir like a Microsoft, like a Oracle, like a Shopify, like a Reddit. There's really no distinction between any of them in the eyes of traders that are trading software. I mean, Microsoft was at 470 2 weeks ago. It's at 367. It's just an unbelievable level of decline in a relatively quick pace. And again, I think it's because the market is afraid. What are they afraid of? I can't tell you. So to me, it's an easy buy the dip across a lot of software names. I don't think this is something like, you buy a company, you might be a little afraid of the multiple you're getting it at, and you're going to wait to DCA or see if it ends up becoming a good buy. The software names, you might have to DCA, but I don't think you could say none of these are good buys. Objectively, most of IGV is on sale in a pretty profound way. I mean, even ServiceNow, dude, went from 140 back down to 93, which is kind of crazy. Man, isn't that funny? Good news is bad news for the Max 7. Any news pumps these overbought chip stocks. Yeah, and look, you could say they're overbought, which I agree. I mean, like, it's hard to say the chip names aren't overbought, but once again, the multiple expansion, the earnings expansion is all happening on the chip names. Now, the earnings expansion is definitely happening on the Max 7 names, but the free cash flow is not happening on the Max 7 names. So you're in a really weird, dicey situation where it's like, do I buy the Max 7 names that are good quality companies that will be around for, one could argue, a very long time? Whereas the semiconductor names, eventually there's going to be a top to that cycle. But if that cycle top, which will happen, is not happening in the next 5 to 10 years, the better buy on a multiple basis, on an expansion basis, on a growth basis, ends up being the chip names, which, means they're overbought, but it doesn't mean they have to necessarily go down in any meaningful way. Kevin Warsh is going to be testifying July 14th at the House Financial Services Committee. That was just announced right now. So then why isn't NVIDIA moving? Well, that's a great question because that defies the logic of everything I just said. I really hate giving this answer, but it is NVIDIA is just too big. That's it. It's too big. It's too big. I hate the answer as much as you hate the answer. Even that semi-analysis guy came on the show the other week and he said NVIDIA reminds him of Apple in 2014, whereas Apple was too big. They had to start buying back stock. And so maybe we don't see any meaningful growth on NVIDIA until they end up doing the buybacks. Once again, I think it's stupid that all these CapEx names that are the beneficiaries of everything NVIDIA is doing is where the money's going to. I shouldn't say I think it's stupid. I think it's just weird that NVIDIA doesn't get any of the participation in that, but everything else in the supply chain does, which logically makes sense because they're smaller companies. But if NVIDIA were to go away, those names would be done. Like dunzo, they're gone. They're dead overnight if NVIDIA has any significant level of growth decline. So the idea that you wouldn't give a premium, and we're not talking about market cap here, we're talking about price to earnings, like a premium to NVIDIA on the sustainability of what they've been able to do is just confusing. But, that's how this market has been.
People making profits off the initial, a price action. I think the bigger issue is maybe the Google talent departure and some thoughts about sustainability. Look,
that stock's down 6%. By the way, you don't see these kind of moves all that often, right? They're 6% for an Alphabet's it's a lot move, $20.
It's a lot, and especially when you add the market cap, factor. But I think when if I tell you what institutional investors, what stock they like the most in the grade 8, it probably was Google. Coming in, I think it was probably the most popular one to own. I think most people would say, well, I get NVIDIA is well positioned and it's cheap. Google seems like they win no matter what. So I think those two were certainly the ones I hear the most, and the most retail names, the least institution, were probably Apple and Tesla. So when you get negative news on Google, I get it. It probably, people getting a little more nervous,
What do you think? I mean, was the SpaceX?
We'll get back to that in a second. But speaking of SpaceX, Rocket Lab just put out a video The Space Force called and we launched from call up to liftoff in just 16 hours and 42 minutes. Rocket Lab has made history, the fastest response ever for a Space Force tactically responsive space mission.
LD, this is MD on mission.
MD-LD.
We are go for vertical.
LD, GC mission cord. GC-LD. ECS disabled, hold down mechanisms armed, pad auto sequence armed, pad ready for launch. Box load is complete, system is in recirculation.
Victus Hayes is configured for ascent state and ready for hot pursuit.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift over. Vehicle is clear to pad. Beginning pitch over.
MECO confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
Payload separation confirmed. Nominal transfer orbit achieved. MD-LD on mission code.
Go ahead, LD.
Spacecraft separation is confirmed. Victus Hayes is all yours.
Copy, LD. Space Systems is taking control. Thanks for the ride.
I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Space Force gave them 24 hours. They needed 16 hours and 42 minutes. Stock's up 2 cents after hours, so nice to see a little, little pop there. I don't know, man. Space is gonna be an interesting thematic here. If this SpaceX IPO ends up being a bust and goes below 135, which I don't know if I see that really happening, but I wonder if that knocks the wind out of Rocket Lab Lunar ASTS, no matter how much they try to obviously promote the value of what they're doing. It really just comes down to, can market support the valuation at this point? Obviously, retail has been a strong supporter of it. Bloom Energy, that was up on the day, 5%. S&P 500 down about a third. Qualcomm ended up red as well. Okay, cool. So that was some of the updates you had across a variety of things when it comes to SpaceX. Applied Digital, they also secured a power agreement with Montana for its Polaris Forge 3 data center near North Dakota. Initial operations are going to be opening August 2027 on that. A lot of the Bitcoin miners turned AI HPC plays did get some momentum today, even if it kind of cooled off towards the end of the day. Yeah, how much did Elon lose in net worth? I think it was only 152 billion. It's not that bad when you really think about it, but little haircut for Mr. Elon Musk. Dude, that's crazy. Think you lost $5,000 in a day? You feel bad? 150 billion. Yeah, that's a few people on the Forbes list combined in one day. It's wild, bro. Absolutely wild. But nonetheless, SpaceX continues to be that momentum play, and momentum is headed to the downside at the current moment.
IPO and the pop off the IPO and the difficulty, if not inability, to really value the company. Was that a sign of something like a peak of speculative reach that's now coming back to earth a little bit, or is it all about much ado about nothing? It's just an IPO that's just coming back to earth a little bit.
I think it's a little bit more of the latter, right? It performed well. People made money on it. They're taking profits. We have a little bit of choppy market. Last week, worst comes in, and it comes in pretty hot. That unsettles the market. And so stocks trade, and that's what's happening, right? If you look at the IPO market, if you look at tech, what's working is momentum. And we are still in a momentum market. And if you don't have positive price momentum, then it's very difficult.
What do you think?
I think this is such a rotational tape. I mean, think about the last 2 or 3 weeks. Eco at S&P made new highs last week. Russell 2 is making new highs today. Only one of the Mag 7 has made a new high in June, and it's the stock none of us has mentioned. It's Apple. The other $1 trillion stock making new highs right now that gets no attention is Lilly. So as money has come out of the Mag 7, you've seen it go into healthcare. So I think the question we're all trying to ask ourselves is, when you see these big tech sell-offs or Mag 7 down, is money leaving the asset class, or is it finding some other place to slosh around? I think it's the latter. I think this rotational tape is evidence in the banks, all the banks breaking out here again. I think it's evidence,
as we show at the top,
in the healthcare sector. So I take some comfort that money doesn't want to leave the asset class.
We talked about that in the morning as well. The financials starting to participate is actually a really good sign. XLF up about 0.5% on the day, still down 2% for the year. Obviously, tech has outperformed, semis in particular, but the financials were pretty ugly back on March 30th, and they haven't had as big of a rebound as you'd expect. I would imagine with more IPOs, especially with the Anthropic IPO coming up, they're going to hopefully have a lot more of that momentum. Is Micron still moving after hours? Micron 12.29. Most of you guys said pump on Micron after earnings. This is a pretty big move we're seeing going into earnings. So either this is going to just be an absolute ripper and it's going past 1,500, which I could see. I mean, I would put it at what, 20 times forward? It still wouldn't be that crazy. But if it goes the opposite direction, and it last time Micron fell from what, 470 to 330, it's obviously a totally different stock now. But if that were to happen, obviously that could be a little ugly. Micron has a history of dumping after earnings. 2018 is the sort of super cycle Micron was in that this price action is similar of, if you look at the charts. Now, 2018 did not have the AI tailwind, but we're going to see how much the market's willing to hold on to this for now. What else did we have today? Palantir got that deal with the Army. No update on the amount of that deal, but that was announced right after the bell. Again, I know it's an ugly drop on Palantir. All I can say is if it was Palantir in an isolated role, I think there would be an argument to analyze. I don't think there's much to analyze here if the entire software industrial complex has just fallen off a cliff at this point. And I think, once again, it becomes a really good opportunity. Now, again, you have to be a little selective. Like maybe Adobe is not that interesting, but the other ones are pretty interesting. So I do think that's better than not to see what other names are getting that love. We got Mr. Sir Joseph Carlson. He responded to my bearish Netflix post. We're going to have to respond in real time. He wrote out a Bill Ackman essay. Dude, I love Joseph, but sometimes he takes it a little too seriously, bro. Sometimes he takes it a little bit too seriously. Admit, you hate it when people spread wrong information about your investments, and you frequently correct them when they do. So I hope you will have the same level of standard. I haven't even read the whole thing, but at the end he says, "Still love you." I'm like, bro, you don't have to say you still love me. Like it's okay. We can have a intellectual debate about this. All right, let's see, what does he say? He does love Netflix, but I don't think I went to town on Netflix. I just made a simple argument for why I don't like it right here. First, Netflix did not try to purchase Roku or Lionsgate. Netflix outright said they did not make a bid on Roku, and there is zero indication that they tried to buy Lionsgate, so that's just plain wrong. I don't know if that necessarily is believable. Not making a bid on Roku does not mean that they didn't try to buy Roku. There's nuance here. Making a bid is much more different than inquiring about the asset class. And Lionsgate, that's just a game of he said, she said. Also, given the fact that they tried to pay $82 billion for Warner Brothers, I think there's an argument for why they could have at least inquired, even if they did not formally submit a bid for the other. So I don't think he's right. I don't think he's wrong there. The point is, if they tried to go after them, then that's something you could necessarily critique. Netflix, however, could have easily purchased Roku or Lionsgate, as they are in a strong financial situation, and if needed, could have outbid any other bidder. The fact that they did not proves the opposite point of desperation. Yeah, my argument is not that they are desperate to buy another asset class. My argument is they are desperate to get a new type of show that can lead to growth, and the lack of a show leading to growth is the issue. So yeah, they're in the position to easily buy a Roku or Lionsgate, but that doesn't mean it's a good for them to buy a Roku or Lionsgate. I think that argument is also a point. You also say the only reason they beat EPS last Q was because of the $3 billion breakup fee, otherwise no growth. Let's look at that. Otherwise no growth claim. Even if you factor out the EPS benefit from Warner Brothers termination fee, they would have grown EPS by 6%. The $2.8 billion windfall was also not accounted as revenue. So they organically grew revenue by 16% in the quarter, and they projected revenue growth of 12 to 14% on the full year. Yeah, my argument is not on revenue because I don't really care about revenue. My argument is on EPS. Second of all, okay, yes, technically they would have grown EPS by 6%, but we all know that's not enough to live up to the street's expectations. So he's being too technical there. When I mean otherwise they would have shown no growth, that's my point. They beat EPS by 30%. That was massive growth. Why? Because of the $2.8 billion breakup fee. If they didn't, it would have been 1 penny. I think it would have been 71 cents or 78 cents versus 77 cents, which, the street was just not excited about. So I think he's being a little too technical there without looking at the actual argument that I'm saying. I could argue about the content side of things. Sure, no huge hit like Squid Game, but Netflix has said that no single title accounts for more than 1% of total viewing of Netflix. Arguing that they have no big hits is like saying YouTube is doomed because Mr. Beast video didn't pop off last month. That is completely incorrect. That is a horrible analogy, and I'll explain why in a second. Netflix has the most broad viewer base of interest of any streamer. Not debating that. And they mentioned their internal metric for quality engagement reached an all-time high record last quarter. Vague, but still positive development. I don't really care about that. Still love you, but I think the post started off on a bit of a false premise that the media narrative has pushed recently. No, I disagree. So look, Netflix needs big shows to drive subscriber growth. It's just that simple. YouTube does not need a Mr. Beast video to pop off last month, because if you don't watch Mr. Beast on a Saturday, you can watch Steve's stream on 1 p.m. on Saturdays, right? Like YouTube always has stuff that is able to garner your attention because there is an algorithm that has the most personalized feature sets on the planet with some of the best AI on the planet. And there's literally an infinite level of content that you can get based on what you search for, which is why they're so good at targeting you. Netflix doesn't have that. If the thing you want to watch isn't on Netflix, and if their recommendation algorithm isn't strong enough to recommend a premium piece of content, like the people that want stock market news, you're not going to get it off Netflix. Netflix does not have everything for everybody. YouTube has everything for everybody. Now, maybe it's not always as premium, but the trade-off is that you have everything for everybody, which means you constantly have growth. So I think this is a fundamentally bad form of analysis when he says, sure, no huge hit like Squid Game. I mean, like, hold on. Squid Game drew 4 million subscribers in a month for Netflix back in 2021. If you can't produce those types of hits, if you're going to be, or license those types of hits from different media companies, you're just not going to grow. Which is part of the reason they stopped sharing their subscribers. They probably realized that they're so saturated enough that they can't grow at the level that they were growing at for the past 15 years, which is fine. Not criticizing for that. My post was just very simple. They have no hit shows, which you could say Stranger Things is a hit show, but is it leading to subscriber growth? No, not at the level like a Squid Game did. And, it's been 4 years since that. I disagree with Joseph Carlson. I do think they tried to buy, that's more he said, she said, a variety of different asset classes. But I don't even need to win the Roku Lionsgate argument. The fact that they tried to spend $80 billion on Warner Brothers shows you how desperate they, like, dude, you're not spending $80 billion on Harry Potter if you're not desperate for content. It's just that simple. And then you got outbid by someone who wanted it more than you, and you realize it was kind of stupid to spend $120 billion. So, like, I get why they didn't end up taking the deal, but they're desperate for content. It's just that simple. And then once again, Joseph did not respond to this argument, which is the biggest point, I think, of my post. Mag 7s are better businesses trading at lower multiples. So when we think about, why someone would buy Netflix right here over a Meta or an Amazon or a Microsoft, which again are trading at lower multiples and are fundamentally better businesses. You can't tell me buying content and getting subscribers to, pay a monthly fee is better than the vast diversity of essentially the many, many countries of GDP that the other companies are putting up and trading at lower multiples than Netflix. Like, you can't tell me that's a better business, which I don't think it's a false premise. I think it's, more not stocks are trading in relationship to their historical patterns. Micron, by the way, 1240 after hours as well. So again, it's not to hate on Netflix. I'm not even short Netflix. I don't even care. Like, I'm trying to evaluate intellectually, does this make sense buying at 72.80 when the rest of the market's like this? Now, if the market pumps, Netflix is going to, go back up pretty quickly with the rest of the market, but is it going to outperform the rest of the market here? I think is a deeper question. Netflix has always bought their content. It's not new behavior. Yeah, I agree. The problem is, like, they haven't recently bought or licensed or created content that is unique in any meaningful way. And again, I'm just speaking it from the numbers, right? Forget that I don't even watch all the amazing Netflix shows that are out there, but like, where has been the Bridgerton or the Squid Game or the thing that really gets people to be like, man, I need to download Netflix? Like, it just hasn't been there. Otherwise, we would see it in the numbers. We're not seeing it in the numbers. Like, it's kind of obvious. If it's not in the numbers, you can't argue with it. YouTube, by the way, is not growing like crazy anymore either. YouTube is also saturated. I think YouTube's a better business model, though, and YouTube is more sticky. YouTube has a way better advertising business, and YouTube is only one part of Google, which is why Google is a easier argument to justify buying over Netflix. But I don't think my post was intellectually dishonest. I fundamentally disagree with Joseph on that. Like, saying the post is spreading misinformation about this, I mean, like, no, dude, like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is nothing in this post that's misinformation or like trying to taint the narrative here. This is like an honest bear case on Netflix, which you could disagree with the bear case, but it is absolutely not misinformation. But, stock's down a lot, so obviously I understand there's a lot of people with different perspectives here on it. You don't need a huge hit every year. You don't, but if you're Netflix and you need new subscribers, you kind of do, right? Like, you kind of do. If YouTube needs people to stream and upload videos, it's just there's so many of them. They don't need one individual person to do it. But I feel like Netflix does, which is why they're going into live. And, the live content has worked, but is it driving the type of growth that people care about? Yeah, either get new subscribers or raise prices. And dude, at some point, Netflix is going to run out of pricing power. I mean, the content is just not strong enough. The network is not strong enough to keep raising prices. So if it's not that, then it's got to be something. Oh, I got to tell you guys a story. My dad got scammed today. Okay, my dad calls me. Someone's comment just made me think of this. My dad calls me today, and he's like, what do you think of SMCI? And I'm like, why? He was like, I'm thinking of buying it. I was like, why are you thinking of buying it? He's like, sent me an alert to buy it. No, first he said Kathy. I was like, who's Kathy? In my head, I knew he was talking about Kathy Wood, but I wanted to be like, is he talking about the same Kathy? He's like, that fund lady? Like, Kathy Wood? He was like, yeah. He's like, she sent me a text to buy it. And in my head, I'm like, oh my goodness, dude. I was like, he must have signed up for one of those fake WhatsApp investment Telegram group chats that are sending out price alerts at this point. I'm like, where did Kathy Wood tell you to buy SMCI, Dad? Where did that come from? And he's like, on WhatsApp. She texted me on WhatsApp. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, Dad, how did you get access to this WhatsApp with Kathy Wood in it? It was like, I saw an ad on Facebook and I signed up. And I was like, bro, this AI shit is like, it's becoming an issue now. It's like legit becoming an issue. I was like, Dad, please leave that WhatsApp ASAP. Those WhatsApps are very dangerous. They try to get you in there. They try to steal your information. They do this, they do that. Like, I was like, Dad, she manages billions of dollars. She's not allowed to actually text you what to buy. Like, that's not how it works. And he was like, it's fake? I was like, yes, it's fake. He was like, but it looks so real. I was like, trust me, Dad, it's fake. And then I told him what SMCI is. But it might have been Tanner. It might have been Tanner that ended up trying to get my dad to buy some SMCI. It might have been that. I was like, damn, bro. Like he clicked on an investing WhatsApp from like a Facebook ad that was using Kathy Wood's image. And I know this because there's so many of them that use my image. And, unfortunately people think they're actually talking to me or they're talking to Kathy Wood. It's like, it's not real. Like, it's like, you have to just, think a little hard and be like, would this person actually be messaging me personalized advice? But it ends up getting so many people. And, asking for your information to trade with your money and all that, it just becomes a mess at that point. Parswell says my mom falls for every scam too. Dude, my dad was watching YouTube this weekend. And he clicked on, the guy's name, the Chinese professor that's going super viral talking about World War III. Professor Zhang. He clicked on a video, a thumbnail popped up on his feed, and it was an AI version of the professor. And he clicks on it and he starts watching it. And I'm in the room and I'm like, Dad, this isn't real. And he's like, what do you mean it's not? I was like, this guy on TV, like this is AI. Like it's not the real professor. He's like, how do you know that? And it was crazy. I'm like, look at it. It's fake. And there's going to be, and he ended up being like, oh, you're right. But there's going to be a day where he's going to look at it and be like, no, you're out of your mind. It's not fake. And I wonder what's going to happen during, I feel like it's going to be a real societal thing when the deepfakes actually start taking over. Because to me, it was obvious. I'm like, that's not, I've seen that guy's videos. Like, this is not him. Like, you can even tell the intonation of his voice. I was like, this is some AI bullshit. And I'm just thinking, like, how many of these videos is my dad watching throughout the day, just playing in the background? And so this AI shit, maybe that's Joseph's actual bull case for Netflix. Netflix can't have fake stuff, whereas YouTube has plenty of fake shit. Tanner's videos are the same. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I felt bad for him because I'm like, he's older. He can't tell the difference. And I'm like, eventually it's going to get so good where you legit cannot tell the difference. And, once it starts fooling me, it's going to kind of be obvious that, even people who are younger are going to start to recognize that it's just not something that you can necessarily tell the difference on, which means the potential for so many weird things to happen, I think, are only going to go up. You also have a history of not being good at detecting it. Well, trust me, this thing was definitely fake. Tanner's SMCI is up 15%, though. Let me pull up this website. So Tanner's number one. Even with this day, though, he got crushed on Microsoft and Palantir. Like, it's so crazy. You would think on a day like this, where he has three names that are up so much, he has bigger than a 0.6% lead, but it's not even that much because all of us are also down so much because of all the different names that went red. So I think a lot of our portfolios are actually similar. Like, we all have a mix of names that move in unison with each other. So certain names need to really break out like an SMCI while the other ones hold steady to like diversify from the other names that are there. The link is stockdraft.com. Draft.com is the one that's out there. What are you talking about on Netflix? They've been putting out more content lately than for years. You don't watch enough Netflix to know. Again, I think this argument is I don't understand why people keep making this argument. Look at the numbers on Netflix. It's not about the amount of content they put out. It's about, is that content driving the cultural zeitgeist to get people, new people, like, because, new people have to sign up and pay money so that, the revenue actually goes up. They can fill it with billions of pieces of new content. Unless that content hits a nerve and has a moment, they're not going to grow. They're not going to grow in a meaningful way, which is why they wanted to spend $80 billion to get Harry Potter and Big Bang Theory and all those. Let's just think logically. Why was Netflix ready to spend $82.9 billion on content? They are obviously a bit worried that they don't have enough content to get people to subscribe. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. And so they can keep filling it with whatever junk content they're putting up there And when I mean junk, I don't mean it from a subjective perspective, because you don't have to trust my perspective on the content. I'm saying in the numbers, if the numbers aren't growing substantially, then the content's junk because it's not getting new subscribers. They wanted the studios more than the content, but see, that's also my problem. If they want the studios more than the content, then that means they can't create original content anymore. Or not that they can't do it anymore, but they're not really hitting the types of original content they need to drive growth. So if they think an MGM or a Lionsgate or a Warner Brothers Discovery can make better original content, which they probably can better than Netflix because that's their bread and butter, then they're willing to pay a higher premium. That is an issue, because it means in the short term, that is Netflix subliminally admitting, or not even subliminally, explicitly admitting, we don't have the level of content that's needed to get people excited. It's not even a bear case. It's just an argument on like, okay, why is this name super exciting then if the growth's not there? Having said that, I do think it's bottomed. I mean, I don't know if it's really falling to 65, but at this point, I feel like it just has to get cheaper to be a lot more attractive. If Max 7 names keep going down, CapEx restraint calls will get louder and louder. Don't love the price action, even as a memory investor. Dude, I wonder at what point do the Max 7 have to get destroyed in order for CapEx beneficiaries to also get destroyed? Like, does Meta have to go to markets like, yeah, we can't just keep buying Micron and SanDisk over Meta? Or does Meta have to go to 400 so that Zucks can cut CapEx down so that the stock can go up, and the street could then, as a result of that, cut the CapEx beneficiaries and go back to buying the Mag 7? Like, I wonder if they're stuck in that type of an ecosystem, or like a symbolic way for the market to actually think about, what it means to buy these. But I don't know. This sounds like you're an antithesis on Spotify in 2023. Great companies usually find ways to keep winning. The problem with Spotify in 2023, first of all, the entire market was at a bottom in 2023. So anyone who had any bear case on any company in 22, 23, as long as the company was not a piece of crap, it went up, right? So like we were in a bear market at that time. So that's the first argument of just like, everything had bottomed. Right now we're in a bull market, and obviously Netflix is taking a big hit. But number two is Spotify had a negotiating leverage with the record labels, which is something that developed over the past couple of years because Spotify had more leverage on their content. Netflix's business model doesn't have to really deal with leverage on record labels. It is purely subscriber growth, and then on those subscribers they make a margin. I'm not saying Netflix is not going to grow. I'm saying the level of growth that you would pay 20 times earnings for, is that substantial enough to be excited about it? And look, again, I think Netflix is probably closer than not to the bottom. It's just, is the risk reward at buying it at 72, if it goes to 80, that's substantial? Or if it's stuck, in the 80s, then is Meta or an Amazon a better buy? Just texted Kathy. She said she was the one that texted your dad. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe he called me and said he got a Kathy Wood alert. He didn't even know her last name, bro. He just kept saying Kathy. And I knew what type of Kathy he was talking about, but I believe it. SpaceX right there, up a little bit after hours. What if memory tops and the market just sells off? Do people think that could happen? Do people think legit could memory actually top? Like, every time I think of that, again, we talked about it in the morning, you just think of all the more memory we're going to need, all the more growth there. And like, what would be the reason for it to just straight top and the market then sells off from there? I don't know. I feel like that's too predictable of a route for this to take. I don't think it's that easy for these names to just top all at once. Because if memory tops, you would imagine co-packaged optics would top. Like, you'd imagine there's so, like, CPUs. Part of the reason memory is rolling is because you have CPUs and agents and so much more inference. Like the neo clouds, is Nebius really going to 500 billion in market cap if Micron can't sustain $1 trillion? Like, I just think all of it is interconnected. And I don't think they just easily top anytime soon. Yeah, we saw the interview with the Perplexity CEO last week. We played the clip of him saying that Micron could be bigger than Meta. I don't disagree with him. I think it makes sense. He called LLMs vending machines. Now Frontier is all about what agents can do for you, which is so true. Well, the thing about LLMs being vending machines is it once again, it makes me question OpenAI, Anthropic, even Gemini, like the value of those LLMs as token costs keep going down, which should be the bull case for software because Palantir, ServiceNow, they don't care what LLM you use. But it has so far turned into the bear case, which is confusing if the LLMs actually get cheaper. Here's what Bank of America's tech analysts had to say about some of what's going on in tech.
Interesting, though, how we're ending this short trading week in the US with so many factors. For you right now, what is the main driver of psychology for the technology sector?
Gosh, I think that what I find is people are finally understanding how significant this AI trade is going to be, and that's what's getting reflected in some of the moves that you're seeing in the market. The impact of the shortages of the supply chain are also becoming very obvious, whether you see what's happening in memory or the optical supply chain. And so, I feel like the market is fully understanding the kind of supply chain implications and the demand implications. You're going to have a CEO on later who recently commented that token pricing for him went up 2x over the last. It will go up 2x in the next 6 months. Well, that is an indication of supply-demand balance, and clearly we are we need significantly more tokens, and we have significantly more demand for the intelligence than we have supply.
It's so interesting where like the kind of raw data sets or anecdotal data sets that the market's tracking are so different now to what they were. I don't know, you tell me, like as recently as last year or 2 years ago. I want to talk about SpaceX. How big a factor has that IPO been for you and your team, and how have you sort of responded to it?
Well, it's not necessarily a factor, but it's clearly an incredibly significant company that has a very open-ended story alongside with it. We've never really seen a business like SpaceX before in our careers. I would argue humanity hasn't seen a business like SpaceX. So, we have found a significant place in our portfolios for SpaceX, in part because we do see incredible appreciation as we look out 3 and 5 years. Now,
yeah, again, most of these investment funds, they're looking out a few years to be able to justify their thesis. But I don't know, on a 17% red day, you have to see if that thesis still holds up when real capital is put at place. Here's the Rumble CEO. Rumble is doing a pivot into AI compute. Here's what he had to say today.
You did this, what the opportunity was.
In 2013, but it was in 2021 where we took on our first investment. And that was, I guess, around March, April of 2021. And the idea was that we had to build our own infrastructure. And we did that over the last 4 to 5 years. We built our entire infrastructure for Rumble to sit on. And with all that being said, we have all this excess capacity for the video platform. So it was actually in 2021 when we went public as a SPAC under ticker RUM that we said that we had 3 core pillars to the business. One was going to be the advertising platform, one was going to be the video platform, and one was going to be infrastructure as a service. And it is now at this point in time, we launched Rumble Cloud back in 2024. Now with the acquisition of Northern Data, we really kind of put a jetpack on that infrastructure as a service business, and we're ready to take on the world on cloud with Quake AI. So that's kind of been the genesis of what we've done. It's going to be our largest business unit going forward, the cloud side. So we're really excited to really step on the gas on the AI compute as a service and all the other services that we offer.
Expand on that a little bit. So there's 2 core businesses, right? The video platform that we know as Rumble, and then Quake AI, the infrastructure business. And you just said that will be the larger part. How has the kind of growth trajectory changed here? Why is it that it is the bigger part, and what does the outlook look like?
Yeah, so actually, Northern Data just released a couple days ago that they increased their outlook to 170 to 190 million euros for for the full year this year. So that's increased. But when you add on top the video platform, you add on top the deal that we just announced a couple weeks ago with Together AI, and then you add on top the increased outlook with Northern Data, it starts to look fundamentally much different than it looked in the last couple of years. Mind you, we have grown quite a bit. It was in 2021 and 2022, we were like sub 10 million of revenue. So we posted over 100 million in the last year. And now when you add all these assets together and you add everything that we put together, it's going to be fundamentally a much different business going forward here.
I don't know if Rumble's the AI trade, man. There's a lot of better neoclouds than Rumble that's out there. This is the stuff that makes me feel nervous about the market, when companies that have failed at their actual business are pivoting to build data center. Like, what does Rumble have to do with data centers? They're a free speech video platform. And they do some B2B enterprise services on hosting cloud video like Vimeo does. What does that have to do? How are they an expert in scaling compute? Like, when you see that type of shit happening, you just ask yourself, all right, these companies are seeing an easy opportunity to just like capitalize on something that's probably not in their strong suit right here. Basically, everyone with an on-prem computing cluster is going to convert to an AI data center. Yeah, exactly. Just because you have some on-prem compute and you have a couple of enterprise clients you could sell it to, does not mean you deserve to get a data center multiple. Yeah, also Rumble itself is just not, speaking of media, I don't think Rumble's like the most compelling offering that's out there. Why do you think the market fell today? Again, not really seeing a evident reason. I think, look, here's the thing. If S&P was down about 0.31%, it really was nothing. It's just the software names that took a deeper hit, and then some of the semi names, SpaceX being the biggest one in the space place. June, July, August tend to kind of suck in general, historically. June 2nd, we looked at in the morning, is when most things got to their highest level. Some stocks have gotten higher than that. Where was Rock Lab on June 2nd? Is that the day it hit 150? I feel like that might have been the day it hit 150. No, May 26th, a couple days before June 2nd. And so, a little breather, consolidating move for the summer. I feel like it's too early to say that, especially if, we're just having a rebalanced out week. But it's something I think everyone has to be prepared for. And if it does happen, then dips will be bought, as Trump once again has made it obvious that he does not want this market falling down any lower than it is right now. Costco has data center wholesales. Oh my gosh, dude. Imagine Costco Costco's margins kind of suck. If they just flipped it into GPU licensing, threw out all the crap in their business or in their warehouses and just filled it up with GPUs, that'd be crazy. Meta and Microsoft are killing my portfolio. Steve and I talked about it on Basis Points last week. A lot of people reached out saying, they're buying good quality fundamental companies. They're doing the right thing. It's just not working. And I feel for you. I'm in that same situation. But the nature of this market is SanDisk is going higher. Micron's going higher. Seagate's going higher. The neoclouds are going higher. Like it is ARM, which I don't understand how ARM can hold this type of valuation. I know it was down 7% on the day, but it's only 10% fully diluted float because SoftBank has 90% of the shares. As a result, you get a tailwind, it goes higher. And then you have people that pile into it. So it's not working yet. I agree. Eventually it will work. But it is what it is. This is the nature of this market. Again, does it stay like that for the next 5 years? Is Micron outperforming everything for the next 5 years? I don't know, man. I would say over the next year, they still have a lot of room to run. But once again, and for the people complaining that, they didn't get into Micron at 1,200, just remember what it was like at 800. I remember being on this stream asking the chat, I think it was like 70% of you guys said no, who's ready to buy Micron here? It was at 600 I asked that question, at 800 I asked that question, then at 1,000 I asked that question. I think I also asked it at like 950. And every time it was like 70-30, no, I can't buy a parabolic chart. In this market, buying the parabolic charts has worked. And I don't think it's because of a meme. I think it's because of the necessity of memory and the necessity of all these different layers of the stack. That, look, to be honest, the last 5 years of this bull market, you didn't have to be an expert in the picks and shovels of how the bull market was constructed. You just had to be relatively knowledgeable about growth, momentum, and the ability for a company to have a reasonable multiple and then to show that the growth of that multiple was going to continue over the coming years, no matter what sector it was in. It didn't matter if it was ELF or if it was Spotify. And both of those had massive moves over the past couple of years. Some of them have come back down to reality. Some of them have recovered, but ELF's down a lot. Spotify also down a lot from the 700s. But the point is they both made crazy moves. This year, it's been, again, what are you buying that specifically builds the thing that goes into the thing for the GPU, whether it's with HVAC, whether it's Micron with memory, whether it's Lumentum with optics, and how much growth is in that industry and how much can that keep growing? And how compute constrained is that industry? And that's been, the thesis this year. True, but you can't invest in everything as a long-term hold. Some investments are meant to swing trades, and that's fine. All about making money at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. If you're in memory if you're in Micron at 400, I have a friend who's in Micron. He bought calls when it was at 400, like $1 million worth of calls. So he's obviously up a lot. He's been selling like every day. He's just been trimming a little bit more. And his logic to me is like, look, I don't know. I know the Micron thesis makes sense, but I don't know when this thing falls apart. And I'm up a lot. Like I'm up 400 or 500%. Like what more do I want, right? And so I think the people that have been trimming here and have made good money on it, like if you miss out on some more gains, that's fine. But obviously if this thing collapses, it's not going to be fun. And, the SpaceX and different perspective here, but obviously they got a whiff of what that was like today. As this thing is completely round tripped, completely 150 to 230 right back here. So, if you have a SpaceX cost basis of $6, like some people do in the private space, you kind of don't have to worry about it. But if you bought it at 200, like if you bought Micron today at 1150, you're in a little bit more of an issue versus if you bought it at 400 or 500. And I think the people buying the software names that like a Microsoft at 367, that might be a cost basis that's similar to a Micron at 400 a couple of years from now. If Microsoft gets to $700, $800. I mean, the average price target on Microsoft is in like the 500s. So yeah, it's 557. So you have the entire analyst community on your side. Same thing with many of the other software names like Palantir and ServiceNow. You just don't have the market on your side right now. SpaceX will hit 140 tomorrow. If that happens, things get ugly because then the people that bought at 135, they have to start asking themselves, this thing goes down $5, I'm red. Do I really want to hold into the red? Do I buy the dip? Or, And sometimes the easy answer is just like, well, let me get out of it. We should all just be buying Costco. That would make our lives easier. Why aren't Toots buying Microsoft if they think it's going to 550? I think they are. I think the Toots are buying all the names that we're complaining about. The problem is, I think the hedgies, which are different than the institutions, because the institutions tend to be long with a thesis on being long. The hedge funds tend to be a little bit more short-term, but they play with big dollars. So the top 10 buys last Q were Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Visa, Sunbee, Disney, UNH, Uber, NVIDIA, Berkshire Hathaway. So the institutions absolutely are buying the names that are getting wrecked. As quant firms and keeping that price depressed. And realistically, the only way you can beat them is by buying the dip and holding long and seeing when this plays out. I don't know why Disney's there. I went on a rant on Netflix. Don't make me go on a rant on Disney, bro. Disney's also, I've just never if you watch my stuff from 2023, I've been bearish Disney. Look, I was wrong to be bearish Netflix in 22. Definitely, the stock did a 10x since then. Now I think it's like a 7x, but Disney has been the one that really has not performed. Netflix ended up finding enough content in the premium space to grow in a meaningful way, and they didn't have the legacy business of like parks, which are CapEx heavy on their balance sheet. Disney has the parks business, which is a good business, but it'll, a type of business I think people get super excited about. And they don't really have crazy exciting growth across Hulu, ESPN, and Disney Plus. Now, it's not like that offering hasn't grown. It's definitely not grown to the level that Netflix has been able to grow their subscribers, or an HBO Max. And it hasn't, in my opinion, outside of like Bluey for kids or The Mandalorian, had the type of content that's really been necessary to take it to the next level. Disney's way more international, though. They own a lot of different international assets. It's just, and then you got the controversy potentially leaving. You had the OpenAI deal that didn't end up going through. I think the IP on Disney is just old and outdated, and I don't know if it's going to be, loved for the next 10, 15 years. Oh, by the way, why did we have a new Toy Story? What is going on with this thing? I found out over the weekend that Toy Story, 6? No, Toy Story 5 came out. Why do we have a Toy Story 5? Like, it did great in the box office, so I guess that's bullish for Disney. But I remember watching the first one and the second one, and they were classics. I mean, 3, 4, 5, like, I don't know if we need more of them. But this is another reason I'm a little bearish Disney. It's like, why are they latching on to the same IP from 1995 and making sequels of it 30 years later? Like, I feel like they also ran out of ideas. Yes, I'm still waiting for the next High School Musical. That is correct. I remember we had a VCR for the first one and the second one. But I've never seen the third one. My niece watched it already. Kids don't want to watch movies from the early 2000s. No, I get it, but you're using a concept from the early 2000s or IP from the early 2000s to build movies now versus coming up with new characters, new ideas. I don't know. I think Disney, Netflix, these have never been companies that have been super exciting to me. Now, Netflix, again, has done well since 2022. Disney has been okay. But they are blue chip stocks, which is why, like, you can't get too bearish on Netflix. You can't get too bearish on Disney. You might not think the risk reward is amazing right here, but you can never get too bearish because they're very large institutionally owned stocks. And those institutions are likely going to continue to buy them because they are good, fundamentally solid businesses. They just might not be, the most exciting right now. I think the other thing on Netflix was like, if we had a recession, people would cancel their subscription. Obviously, we haven't had a recession. When it was trading at 140, the thesis was that Netflix was the only thing people would not cancel, which, look, if we have a recession, we haven't had a real recession in a while, right? Like a serious risk. Like the last time we had a real recession, because 22, you could say it was, but, because we had 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, but we didn't have unemployment if anything, unemployment was going down all of 2022 because of 2020. We had massive unemployment. But I don't know if the COVID-induced stimmy recession was an actual recession. So if we were to have that one again, I don't even know if we could predict what consumer behavior would be like, because you got trillions of dollars that are essentially ready to get defaulted on student loans, which technically can't be defaulted, auto loans and credit cards. If we actually have a recession and people just legit never pay that stuff back, I wonder how easily it is then to justify the Netflix subscription in that scenario. And so I don't know if it's a never cancel type of subscription. I think Netflix and Spotify are up there in subscriptions people wouldn't cancel. But, we just haven't been tested in that type of way to see if we would. That's why A24 is relevant. They have original content. Well, I think that's also why Google invested in them as well today. 75 million with DeepMind. Why did Western Digital go up 7? I honestly don't know. I was confused about that as well. Did Seagate also end up red? No, that was green. So Western Digital was one of the only memory names that ended up finishing red for the day. Admit you can't get through a short film. There's no way you're getting through an original film. That is correct. It's dude, original films, like the stuff people watch at those like film shows or whatever, like these indie movies, bro, don't ever tell me to watch an indie movie. I need an 8 out of 10 on IMDb for me to even think of pulling up the movie. I'm just not the person. Same thing with music, bro. Indie music. It's like, no. I need to know I'm going to enjoy it before I even try. Watch Off Campus. Dude, what is this movie about? Everyone's talking about this shit. Off Campus. Oh, no, it's a show. Is it a show or it's a movie? It's a show, right? It's on Amazon. It's on Prime. A college soap based on L. Kennedy's best-selling book series. The first season of Off Campus follows the unlikely romance between a hockey-hating music major. No, I'm not watching this shit. What is this, bro? This is it good? Do people actually watch this? Off Campus? I don't know, bro. Looks a little sus. Maybe we'll watch the first episode and we'll see. I'm definitely not watching Love Island. Dude, my sister made me watch Love Island once. Could not stand that shit, bro. Could not stand it. Oh, and then the other one, she made me watch Love is Blind. I'm like, yeah, get married to someone that you don't know what they look like. That's a phenomenal idea. Like, that's just like, we are progressing as a human species. Let's get married to people and we don't even know what they look like because, you know, love is blind. Like, what? In what world am I going to get married to someone when I don't know what they look like? I don't get it, dude. I don't get it. Isn't that like an arranged marriage? But in an arranged marriage, you still have to see the person. Like maybe a century ago, it was just like you meet them and boom, you're married. But like my mom and my dad still like talked and like went on a few dates for a few months before they actually, like, my mom had the ability to reject him, right? She jokes about that all the time, that she was going to reject him over these like random things. But like, you know, she had the opportunity to, and she chose not to. So like the idea of just not knowing what the person looks like, I don't know. You only care about look. No, it's not that I only care about looks. It's just I would like to know who I'm going to be looking at for the rest of my life. Like that, I feel like that's a good idea. I don't know if that's asking too much to know what they look like. Where did Tesla end up on the day? Tesla 405. Yeah, this one spiked from 392 to 415. There was no reason for it, but ended up coming right back down. Anyway, Disney and Netflix, I don't know. Maybe they are the buys right now. But once again, the Meta, Microsoft, Amazon decline makes you wonder, is that the right buy? Speaking of Netflix, let's get some coverage on it right now as people are discussing it.
Netflix falling more than 41% in the past year and now closing at its lowest level since October of 2024. Courtney, what do we do?
Yeah, so I think this is a company where we used to look at this and people say, well, it's untouchable. Like consumers are never going to cut Netflix out of their budget. But I think that conversation is really changing. I mean, they have enough competition now that people are starting to push back on their price increases. And it is a mature business. They've really reached most of the US audience here, a lot of like the higher incomes abroad too. And at a certain point, they're not going to be able to increase their prices forever. So I don't think this is the same kind of growth story it was in the past. So I don't think this is something you want to be jumping into. I don't think it's going to go down forever here, but I don't think it's going to have those kind of gains that we used to be.
It feels feels like more than just subscriber churn, or maybe that's what it is. I mean, I don't know when the last time everybody sort of talked about a Netflix show. You know, since Stranger Things, when's the last time everybody in the collective Squid Game, Stranger Things, where's that collective consciousness? I wonder if that's what the stock trades on. I don't know.
Well, they're going to live sports. I mean, they are finding other ways to get into different content. You're also seeing they're trying to get, advertising revenue. They're trying to shift the model here to keep those eyeballs. But yeah, it's becoming a game of how do we keep them as opposed to we're innovating, we're ahead of the game. It's a chasing game at this point.
The organic growth. Listen, I thought the whole way down from last fall until the lows that we saw, I guess, in February, I thought there were periods of time where it made sense. That was clearly not the case. But then when the Paramount Warner Brothers thing got sorted out, the stock rallied, and it should have rallied, and I thought the rally would continue. We're now lower than we were, I think, back in February at the trough, which is shocking. And now what the market, I think, is saying is, you know what? The organic growth days are over, and now they need to sort of buy growth, and they're going to overpay. And I think that's part of the concern, along with the fact that Reed Hastings seemingly out of nowhere stepped down. So I get it, but I still think the stock is way too cheap.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see a Spotify merger. You got a $300 billion market cap. You got a $100 billion market cap on the Spotify. You kind of put those together.
They buy Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a merger, but like.
Who thinks that a Spotify merger? I don't hate the idea. I just don't think that's going to happen. Netflix and Spotify. I don't. Netflix really ends up buying Spotify. I also don't think that solves their content problem. Get them into music, which is fine, but I don't know if that's the solution right here for Netflix.
This is a company, Netflix has 50% gross margins, and you look at Spotify at 33%, and you say to yourself, these are both double-digit growers. They got good balance sheets here, and you take out a lot of costs. So to me, I think if you see pressure on him,
I don't want to cut you off.
No, I think this would have been a lot easier like 5 years ago.
Okay. Now, what is that? What is that?
I just got a little.
Because I mean, that is not fair.
It's provocative thought. The question is, I'm not sure a merger with Spotify is going to help the stock. I mean, I think people would be concerned about that. I hear you. It actually makes some sense.
No, I think it would be a behemoth. I really do. From, if you think about it from a subscriber situation, you could actually really do a bundle and you could take out a lot of costs, and it would make some sense. If you think about Spotify pushing into podcasts, Netflix is doing that. Unscripted is really a big part of it. Videos.
They go together.
They
go together, but Spotify's not cheap. And my guess is they'd be probably overpaying on some kind of a merger. I just think that, look, the hours per sub numbers were not good. The operating margin dynamic is something that you need to see, and they've been very conservative on this over the last couple of years, and they usually tend to be. I think there's some feeling. Jeffries has a note out that talks about also how these bans on social media for under 16s is something that's Netflix positive. I think it's a lot of little things. I don't actually think there's a big thing here. I think, and again, as we always say, valuation is not a reason to go buy a company. And my guess is if Carter is here or Katie or one of these people that talks charts all the time, it's not a chart people want to go out and buy, but it is a company I would like to go out and buy. And I would probably start adding to a position here.
Well, Carter is here.
Okay.
He's just not talking about Netflix.
Yeah, again, I do not hate taking a nibble at Netflix here. Not at all. Not at all. I think it's down 40%. At some point, you're going to have to take a nibble. I took a nibble on Shopify down from 150, took a nibble on Reddit down from 280. Like, if you like the name, you got to take a nibble here. I just wonder, what is the actual solution to some of the broader issues that this company is having. Spotify and Netflix, though, I don't know. I also don't know if the regulators would allow it, right? Spotify's still a European company. So I'm not sure. Did you see Chamath's newest video? Yes, I saw his new video. I liked what he was saying. It's Chamath, man. His video was like, you don't need possessions. Like, you don't need to buy stuff. And then people looked up the sweater that he was wearing during the video. And the sweater cost $2,500. And it was one of those things where it's like, it's like, yeah, it's the right argument that you don't need to buy stuff to feel happy. But at the same time, the person who's delivering that message obviously likes the more luxurious things in life. I feel like I'm the only person who's like legit on this train of I don't like buying material things. Like, I've been pretty consistent on that for a long time. I don't spend money on material shit. I really don't ever do it. The only real thing I've spent actual money on is my apartment. And that's because I personally just appreciate having a very nice view. And I've wanted it for a very long time. I don't have fancy sneakers. Don't fly first class. Don't buy watches. The Tesla I got on an amazing deal, 0% APR. Who wouldn't have taken that on a Tesla? It would have been the same as buying a Honda Civic now, given the prices that have inflated because of oil going up. So I really don't. No, the Tesla, dude, the Tesla is a $490 payment on the Tesla. Interest-free for 5 years. That was a responsibly smart financial choice during 1 week in November where they were giving a deal because Elon was trying to hit his delivery numbers. And as soon as I realized that was happening, I swooped in. And if I had waited another week, they would have given me free FSD for even longer. But like that was a smart thing to do. That was not, in my opinion, materialistic at all. So I don't know. Saratoga. I don't drink Saratoga water. No, I do not buy $20 coffees. Who told you I was buying $20 coffees? Who would buy a $20 coffee, bro? I don't even drink coffee. You fund Apple's free cash flow. Okay, but my everything I do is on my phone. Like that's my entire life. So I have to have a good phone. I have to have a good laptop. Like that's just business expenses. Those aren't like luxurious things. Like put in the chat, and there's no judgment here, but like put in the chat if you actually buy luxurious shit and use it in a meaningful way. Like every month you're buying like really nice clothes or you're constantly getting a new bag or something. I guess for your girl. No, I don't even buy crazy NBA jerseys or anything. I have one that I bought. One I got as a gift, a Kobe jersey 5 years ago, and then one I bought when I went to California as a Curry jersey, and I wore it once. But like I don't really spend money on that stuff, dude. This Palantir stock of luxury. Well, it was an investment, so I would say no. But if we classify it as luxury, then yes, that has been the biggest luxurious item that I bought over the past 5 years. I don't buy shit. I just don't like if I ever have a bad month in the markets or like, I don't know, you're experiencing a drawdown, which is inevitable. Like, I don't think like, oh man, like I don't have enough money to do XYZ. It's like, because I don't do XYZ. As long as rent, the car payment, and the basic expenses are taken care of, there's not that like fear of like, man, I don't have money to do this. It's like, to do what? Like, I don't do that. There's nothing I do that needs money. Maybe go out to eat, sure, like that's, but food money is in the budget. But there's no like monthly payment on something or necessity to buy stuff. I don't go on vacations. The Singapore thing is a meetup, but I have my expenses in Singapore are going to be minimal because outside of the flight, which was annoying to pay $2,500 for, but Trump decided to strike Iran and oil spiked up. So let me see what the price of a Singapore ticket is now a month from now. Let's see if the prices came down. But because my family's in Singapore, I'm staying somewhere for free, so I don't even have to worry about like a hotel or anything like that. Now, again, I'm not opposed to spending money. I'm not trying to say I'm cheap. I am, dude. The prices for these prices are $1,100 going out for the next 5 months. Oh my goodness, dude! I paid $2,500. If I were to buy my ticket for June 24th today, it would be $1,170. This is insanity, bro. Dude, this is crazy. Look at this flight. Look at this, Newark to Singapore. I paid $2,500 for that. That is crazy, bro. You know, I can't cancel and rebook. It doesn't work like that. It's been a month since I bought it. I mean, I thought I was doing the responsible thing, buying it a month early, because like that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah, I literally bought the top, bro. That's what it cost me to get to Arkansas from New Jersey. Oh my gosh, Chad. You can try to get a credit. Dude, I think I'm going to have to call up United and have a conversation, bro. This is crazy. That's more than double we're paying. And I bought it for me and my sister, so it was $5,000. That is crazy, bro. I should have waited till oil came down. Then again, what if oil kept going up? Yeah, I didn't do technical analysis on airplane tickets. That sucks, bro. But see, like that was the biggest expense for the entire trip, more than anything else. No, mine's not a direct flight. There's a stop. It's really hard to find a direct flight from Newark. Even that one had a stop in it, but $11.70 for a stop is not crazy. I do not have travel insurance on mine, but I would be open to calling them and being like, "Hey guys," I think they might just tell me to F off though and be like, "Hey, this is when you bought it." I also don't want to have a brand new, like, dude, the flight's in 2 days. Like, I don't want there to be too much craziness, but that's insanity, dude. I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't check what the flight was. No, that was a round trip, 1172 round trip. Do you guys think they actually will do something about it if I call them? I'll try. That's a lot of money, bro. That would be freaking, yeah, that'd be about $3,000 we'd save. Around about $3,000 that we could save there. It's like 12 shares of Nebbia's difference in price. Exactly. When we think about it in shares. Okay, half of you are saying no, half of you are saying yes. No shot. Call them live on stream. Oh my gosh. I'm going to try. I'm going to legit try. I'm going to see. Tell them you're the CEO of AK Media. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to care. I don't think they're going to care. But I would still ask. Do we have anything else going on? Do we have anything else going on? I don't see any other bigger updates here. Ask ChatGPT. You know, we should ask ChatGPT. Well, let's ask ChatGPT. I booked a flight to Singapore a month ago for $2,500. The flight is in 2 days, and now the ticket is $1,200. Do you think I can call and get a credit? I'm not in business class. It's just an aisle seat in regular. That's the worst thing. It was $2,500 for like just a regular ticket, but I figured it was the oil prices that are creating it. ChatGPT says you should try. This is very worth trying, especially because the price drop is huge. The key is whether your fare allows cancellation. Yes, I'd call immediately. You may be able to get a $13 travel credit, but it depends on the airline. Since you booked a month ago, the normal 24-hour cash rule probably does not apply. If it's basic economy, you may get nothing. I don't know if it's basic economy, but it's definitely not business class. Right, we got to see, folks. Use your negotiating skills. The problem is if you try to negotiate with like just a random person who works in like United's customer service, there's not much to negotiate with because they don't have that much power, to be honest. And they quite frankly don't care if you miss your flight or not. You know, there's not like there's not much. I don't even think they get paid enough to care that much. So like in these situations, it's really on who you're talking to and if they actually give a shit about your problem. And a lot of times they kind of just don't. Do you pay using a credit card? I think so. Yeah. My United credit card. That's how we got the points for it. So you can negotiate ending a war, but not flights. You know, the war stuff was easy. The war stuff was significantly easier. He literally bought the top. There needs to be a better way to buy airplane tickets so that we can time when we're buying. Because that is kind of crazy that I bought the top. HubSpot was down today as well. HubSpot's down 55% this year, as that one also took a hit. I think those are some of the main headlines. NVIDIA just put out an article about data centers and cooling. It's most of what we got. I did not hedge my ticket. That's correct. They're not upgrading me to first class, bro. The people that paid for first, that's a 16-hour flight. The people that paid for first class, they're going to use their first class. Next show on Netflix, Mitt tries to negotiate the airfare. And Mitt, can you speak about FOMO? Yeah, let's do that. That's the last thing we'll talk about today. So officially announced the investment into FOMO. This is the app. I told you guys I angeled Series A while ago, back in October at a 100 million valuation. It's now worth 550. So me and Rango, some of you guys know Rango, but we led a $2 million SPV. So really fun experience. Have never raised money for an SPV before. I've invested in angel rounds before, but I've never actually raised money for an SPV. And this is something I was busy with over the past couple months. And yeah, I'll let you guys check out the website and see what they're doing. It's on-chain trading. A lot of it's crypto right now. They're moving on to perps and equities. So very big space that continues to grow. 620,000 users, 4 billion of trading volume, 68,000 first-time crypto buyers. I think they've solved a lot of the core problems when it comes to FOMO. Steve invested as well. TJ invested. 24K Golden, that rapper I did a stream with a while ago, he invested. Sam invested. So it was fun. It was definitely a process on learning how to raise capital, because 2 million is, even if you know a lot of people that have money, actually getting people to wire the money and like officially like submit it is a little tough. But I think the quality of the deal is really good. And Index is leading the Series B, and Benchmark led the Series A. And Index and Benchmark, for those that don't know, they're just like, they're some of the best VC firms on the planet, and they never touch social and they never touch crypto. So part of the reason I invested in the Series A was because Benchmark invested in it. It was kind of, wondering, why is Benchmark that does 7 deals a year? They're not like Sequoia and Andreessen. Why are they investing in a social crypto trading app? And, as I got to know the founders, Paul and Say, that's Paul right there, and that's Say, got a better understanding of the method. For everyone saying, could you get the chat to invest? There are too many rules around accreditation and raising capital that make it very difficult to get a lot of people to participate in this. So as much as I would love to have, like, if I could have you guys participate, I would do it in a heartbeat. It's just the level of legal shit you have to go through is not easy to be able to do. And you have to be very, you have to walk a very fine line, because there's so many different rules about public solicitation and all this different type of stuff. So it was fun. It's different from Robinhood in the fact that Robinhood is not global because they're not on chain. So Robinhood, you have an actual brokerage that's governed by the SEC and FINRA and all that stuff. And like, if they want to expand, they have to go to, they have to get a license from Singapore to be able to set up shop in Singapore or Indonesia or anything like that. This is, half of FOMO's entire user base is all international because they're global and they're on chain. I think the crypto community was surprised though, because crypto's been dead for a while, but FOMO's been growing like crazy. And it's like, how is a crypto social app growing when crypto's dead? And that's another part of the thesis that I was really excited for. It's like, dude, their growth is crazy. Like, what happens when we get back to a bull market? They're adding 3,500 users a day. Gross margins are crazy. They're profitable as a startup. So it's exciting. We're going to see. First SPV I've ever led. And, it took a lot of work to get it done. But hopefully this is one that plays out as we see crypto starting to come back. Did Trump just tweet? Trump is tweeting a bunch of pictures right now. Trump is tweeting pictures of Iran polls. These are all the polls that favor the Iran war. I don't know who he's using to get these poll numbers from, but there you go. I don't think Trump liked seeing JD Vance on stage today saying good stuff and then the market going down. So who knows? Maybe we do get some taco analysis tomorrow to get this thing going back up. FOMO just seems like a degenerate trading app. I think the thesis on risk and gambling and the conviction of how people actually trade is converging in a very meaningful way. If you're actually curious about this, I'll link the founders talking about this on a podcast a while ago. And, the entire world is moving towards what is your conviction and how do you justify your conviction in a meaningful way? And then what risk are you taking to prove the thesis on your conviction? And I think that's part of the reason why FinTwit is such a big deal, because people are tweeting their thesis and their analysis on companies and commodities, currencies, crypto, whatever they trade. I think that market's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so FOMO has tapped into a really unique network effect that is scaling dramatically. Like, it's not easy to get the type of growth that they've had. And they've done it in a profitable way. So we're gonna see. These are venture investments. Maybe it goes to zero, maybe it doesn't. But I think the company will become a unicorn many times over. But now they have to execute. So we're gonna have to also see. Binance also has social. I would download the app for those that are wondering what's the difference. I mean, once you download the app and actually use it, the product kind of makes it obvious why at least I think there's a substantial difference. But time will tell. They've got to keep executing. I do wonder when Bitcoin is coming back, because obviously that would be a tailwind for so many of these brokerages and crypto products. It's just this thing like software has been stuck for the majority of the year as well. I'm coming to the meetup from New York City. I'm taking Singapore Airlines. It's a 19-hour flight. Wow. All right, Edster. I will see you there. Did you pay $2,500 for that flight? Because I did, unfortunately. Let's see what United says today. What are your thoughts on Gavin Baker's assertion that the bottleneck trade is nearing its end? When did he say that? He's had a lot of new podcasts recently. I don't think he's made the argument that the bottleneck trade is coming to an end. Did he say that on TBPN? He might have. Oh, yeah. Oh, I think I saw this clip. Let me show this clip. Well, this is a bit nuanced here because, again, his thesis is as long as constraints continue, we don't get a bubble, but an overbuild could be the downfall of the bottleneck trade. Like, look, he's got a lot of Micron. He's got a lot of these bottleneck names. So it's one of those things where I think even he's trying to figure out how to navigate it strategically if that trade is coming to an end.
I do think the bottleneck bros, as they are called, are this like bottleneck trade is kind of nearing its end.
Okay.
And, I did, the Wall Street Journal had the story about this Japanese company that makes, I forget what they make. It's
Isn't it Toto?
Ajinomoto.
Yeah.
Ajinomoto. And everybody's in this because they thought they were going to raise prices, and then they just said, "We're actually not going to raise prices. This is the wrong thing for us." and I almost posted yesterday on X, "Welcome to Japan" to all of the bottleneck people. But everybody's having Claude run. What's the next bottleneck?
Yeah.
That was the game for the last year. The next game is what has enduring franchise value.
Yeah.
Kind of on the other side of these bottlenecks, whenever that is.
Cisco, critical infrastructure for the AI era.
Okay, so here's the issue, right? Gavin Baker has been long the bottlenecks, memory, etc., for a long time. What he just said to me screams by Meta, by Amazon, by Microsoft, sell Micron, sell SanDisk, sell Lumentum, right? Like the argument he's making is that if we're talking about long enduring franchise value over the bottlenecks, then obviously the Metas of the world have a lot more franchise value than the Microns of the world. Having said that, if franchise value is also interpreted from a hardware perspective on a build out that is going to last a lot longer than people think, which Gavin Baker would know, more than ever how long that's going to last, then I think one could argue that the bottlenecks potentially do have the enduring franchise value that he's talking about. It's just when you try to actually, make sense of that. Like again, let's pull up Micron's EPS growth. Like let's really look at it. For those that actually haven't seen what their EPS growth looks like, this is the reason why the stock has made the type of boom that it's making right here. If this falls off a cliff because we just don't need as much memory, or the pricing power is not going to be that aggressive, as you can see right there, it's going higher and higher and higher into 2027. And then EPS analysts are estimating it's going to be $120 in August of 2027. If that 120 goes down to like 50 by 2029, that is the definition of the bottleneck being broken and not being a bottleneck anymore. But if that 120 goes to 150, Micron's going to be a $5 trillion company. Because Micron's still trading at 9 times for it. Like for a company growing that fast, you wouldn't imagine Micron trades at 9 times forever. So I don't fully know what he means by enduring franchise value. What it screams to me is the Mag 7 over the picks and shovels plays. But the picks and shovels plays have become $1 trillion companies in the name of Micron. It's just no one wants to be the last person to buy it. Like no one wants to buy it at 1,200 and then that shit starts going back down. But if it goes to 1,500, no one wants to buy it at 1,500 and it goes back. So that incremental buyer that's scared of buying it, I think is also part of the reason why it keeps going up, but also part of the fear that, pushes more money into Microsoft and Meta from different elements of, the retail trade. But I don't know. We are going to have to see, and those earnings on Wednesday obviously are going to be really important long-term on whatever this trajectory goes. Esther says I had 400,000 points that I used for the Singapore tickets. Wow. 400,000 in points for business class. Dude, and it's a direct flight? That's crazy. I need to call United. I need to see if we can freaking get some credit on this. I hope SanDisk never splits and it goes to 10,000. I hope so too, because it's in my draft now. So we're going to see how long it takes for it to keep moving. All right, folks, I think that is it for today. We'll be back on the market open tomorrow. Nothing too crazy after hours that I'm seeing. Again, software, ugly dip today. SpaceX, really ugly dip today. You had a lot of option volume on Google today. Corning today. Keel got 162,000 options traded today. That's a significant amount for the size of company it is. And your memory names continued, continue moving higher. You think SpaceX is falling further? I do not know, but that's the beauty of not having to worry about it. Like I've traded it, but I'm not in it. So I don't have to stress about it, Like I bought this at 179, sold at 178, bought at 186, sold at 189. think I took a short on it at like 200, probably covered at like 198 last week. So it's like, a couple dollars here and there just trading it. But an actual position that I'd be willing to sleep at night holding it's hard. It's really freaking hard to be excited to, or just not even to be excited, but just to know you have to keep up with like what could happen if it goes the opposite direction. Like Jake Paul, he got 70,000 shares at freaking 135. This, it's like $9 million. If this thing goes down to, he was up a lot more than 9 million over the past couple of days. If he didn't sell and this thing gets to 135, I don't know how much Jake Paul cares about Elon. I mean, there's a world where he might be like, that's a lot of money. I'm just going to sell it and take my money. So I wonder how aggressive, this was his $9 million buy IPO day. I wonder how much people start freaking out if the stock really takes a tumble, same with the institutions, versus how many people get excited to buy. And we're eventually going to find out. How did Jake Paul get so many shares? Jake Paul has a variety of venture funds he works at. He's also an influencer, so I'm pretty sure when they reached out to get an allocation, Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, whoever it was, probably thought, yeah, give him as much as he wants, because Jake Paul tweeting that, gets millions of people to know about SpaceX. So I don't know if that's how it happened. That's just my guess. Like, he most likely, first of all, it's a really big order, so that was probably prioritized. On top of that, when you're an influencer, you probably get some preferential treatment. So that's what we got. And then finally, in terms of Palantir, Microsoft, tomorrow will be really interesting. Palantir broke all levels of support today. So did Microsoft. I mean, we have not seen below 120 in a long time. Last time we saw below 120, May 2025. It has been over a year. We got close in April of this year. We bounced off 123. So the fact that we're below it now, it's either look out below tomorrow or it catches a bid. Same thing with Microsoft as it continues to fall. But we'll have a better understanding of it tomorrow. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the Market Open. We'll keep going from there. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. All right, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Have a good one. See you guys tomorrow morning.